Hey guys, it's me. I'm stuck at this four-way stop and none of us can decide who should go first, so yeah, I'm just gonna record my video here. I am gonna be posting every Sunday and every Tuesday, and then I'm also gonna be going live every Thursday at 1 p.m. Sorry if this is repetitive, I just wanna make sure that I'm telling people that this is the new upload schedule. Yesterday, I was like, hey, I should see what Prager U has been posting lately because we love our propaganda university, you know what I mean? So I go on their channel and something I see is this right here. And it says, Tim Ballard fighting trafficking, something, something, something. I was like, oh my God, they gave Tim Ballard his own 13-minute video. And you probably don't know who Tim Ballard is because you're a normal person. But the fact that this guy is gaining popularity is concerning to me. Right around the time that I did that Jimmy Rex video with Jarvis Johnson, which was super fun, right around that time, I was getting really into the Utah grifter scene. You know, there was AlphaCon, there was Jimmy Rex, there was all this stuff. And one really common thread between all of them was Operation Underground Railroad. Wow, this is really distracting. Hold on, let me, we offer freedom and healing to survivors of human trafficking and exploitation through direct intervention and aftercare. Let's pump the brakes for a minute. Obviously, should go without saying, I am anti-human trafficking, okay? It's a serious problem, and it needs to be handled really, really, really carefully. I also happen to know that a lot of anti-sex worker, like consensual sex worker legislation, which to avoid using too many words, I'll say SW. And that, when I say that, I'm talking about people who are, you know, doing it willingly as their job, they're consenting adults. SW, it might not always be the greatest conditions, you know, depending on who you're working for, depending on where you are. But a lot of anti-SW legislation has been passed in the name of anti-human trafficking. And those two things get lumped together. So all this to say that there are two types of anti-human trafficking groups. There are ones that are pro-SW, and there are ones that are anti-SW. Operation Underground Railroad, which, can we talk about that name, is anti-SW. Operation Underground Railroad is just a favorite for some of the griftiest people, which is why it first showed up on my radar, because I was kind of, you know, like I do, I kind of gang stalk these weirdos, and I kept seeing this name pop up. So I did some research, and Tim Ballard, who is the person who started it, is a weird dude. He's a weird dude. I don't know how else to say it. What I was going to say originally is that I was like, oh, you know, maybe I should do like a video about this. And I just decided against it. I think I was a little scared to or something, but I don't care anymore. If it gets real bad, I'll just turn comments off or something. You know what I mean? I'm sure I know all you guys are going to be respectful. It's fine. I wanted to give you a little bit of background about Operation Underground Railroad, and then we're going to watch this Prager U video. I watched the first 51 seconds of it and I said, I've seen enough. In case Prager U does copyright strikes, the video is probably going to be chopped up a bit, but I am going to watch the entire thing. I'm also going to teach you guys about Operation Underground Railroad, which I'm glad about because you know how I love looking at people's little websites. It's your standard nonprofit website. Our mission to shine a light worldwide on the global issue of child trafficking and exploitation. We place survivors on a path to recovery by partnering with vetted aftercare providers. All that sounds super normal. So it started in 2013. Here's a little video. We've gathered the world's experts in extraction operations. The world's experts in extraction operations. ORU's ops team, sounds cool, consists of former CIA and past and current law enforcement and highly skilled operatives that lead coordinated identification and extraction efforts. What they're doing basically is they're going around the world to rescue people who have been trafficked. Okay. Now, if you are or have ever been an SW-er, you know that the last thing you want is fucking cops. A huge majority of what cops spend their time doing is harassing SW'ers. Oh, we got Dog the Bounty Hunter in here. Let's see.
I'd like to give a shout out to Operation Underground Railroad. Wow.
Let's start out with Tim Ballard's Wikipedia page. It's weird. Timothy Ballard is a self-styled anti-human trafficking activist and author. Ballard has credited his organization with rescuing thousands of trafficking victims, although his numbers have been disputed, and OUR has been criticized for a lack of transparency and exaggerating stories. Tim Ballard and OUR were the subjects of several investigative series that detailed Ballard's relationship with corrupt foreign government officials, his history of fabricating rescues and statistics, and several reports detailing accusations by law enforcement agencies, both foreign and domestic, accusing Ballard of fabricating and exaggerating their relationships. Went to BYU. He's all up in that Utah scene. Was a special agent for the Department of Homeland Security for over 10 years. He worked on the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force and worked as an undercover agent for the U.S. Child Tourism Jump Team. Ballard left the government, and in 2013, he founded the nonprofit OUR. He has briefed politicians on the issue, including
President Donald Trump.
A 2020 Vice News investigation found that the organization employed a pattern of image burnishing and mythology building, a series of exaggerations that are, in the aggregate, quite misleading. A 2021 follow-up article further criticized OUR's practices, which included using inexperienced donors and celebrities as a part of its jump team, failing to validate whether the people they intended to rescue were in fact actual victims, and conflating consensual SW with trafficking. Ballard and supporters of OUR have been criticized for promoting the far-right QAnon conspiracy theory. Packer asserted that Utah media and the LDS Church were complicit in legitimizing Operation Underground Railroad with little to no oversight and fact-checking. And anyone who spends more than 5 minutes looking into the organization could find fraud and corruption. In October of 2020, the Attorney's Office of Davis County, Utah, stated that OUR and Tim Ballard were under criminal investigation regarding complaints that OUR had conducted illegal fundraising efforts. Presented in detail a criminal conspiracy to launder donor money from nonprofits into his for-profit businesses. Before we get into the Prager U video, we're just going to look at this Vice article. If you guys want me to go further into detail about this in the future, I could do another video. I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of background. Inside a massive anti-trafficking charity's blundering overseas missions. Operation Underground Railroad claims to save child sex slaves. People on the ground describe disturbingly amateurish operations that could endanger those they're meant to help. Somewhere on the border of Haiti and the Dominican Republic, it was not going well. The trafficking charity OUR had arrived in a remote village seeking a missing child, acting on what founder Tim Ballard had promised was a solid tip from a source. A group from OUR's so-called jump team had entered the village, pretending to be part of a medical team. Real medical workers had been hired as a cover and were providing actual care to people in the village, while the operators, as they're called, quietly surveyed the scene. But the missing child was nowhere to be found. And then, to the dismay of several people on the ground, Ballard produced his source. A psychic medium from Utah. Right away we got problems. Two people who went on one of those missions independently related the same series of events to Vice World News. They said Ballard, who worked for Homeland Security investigation and claims to have been a CIA agent before that, had been relaying tips from his source. That person claimed that many children were being held near this village. Ballard, both sources said, even called Guesno to tell him that his son was coming home and summoned him to the village. Then Ballard arrived in Haiti with his unexpected companion. Tim shows up with this woman, this very sheltered-looking soccer momish woman from Utah, and he's been very defensive and won't let anyone talk to her. After a couple days, I figured out she's a fucking psychic. That's his fucking source. Both people remembered her name as Janet, and that her tip, perhaps predictably, did not pan out. Soon after Ballard arrived, the villagers became suspicious and increasingly upset as he began circulating through the village with a camera crew. This goes on and on and on. This is actually a really, really lengthy article. Let me just see if there's any good visuals in here. Here he is with Trump. Yeah. Okay, so this is one of their graphics. What makes our model work? Our rescue teams are a focused, nimble group of extraction experts. We are former U.S. Navy SEALs, CIA, law enforcement, medical personnel, and military veterans. Privately run, bureaucracy-free, which is ironic because he gets all of his legitimacy from having worked for like Homeland Security and possibly the CIA, or allegedly he said that. They claim they have all these special operations guys, and it's complete and utter bullshit. It's laughable to call what he did ops, a veteran who worked with OUR overseas said of Ballard. They'd go and just push for pimps to show up with girls. If presented with SWs of legal age, ORU would insist on younger girls, a method that several experts said could, when combined with a lack of intelligence gathering and vetting, potentially lead to girls being trafficked who otherwise wouldn't have been. So if it didn't fit their narrative, they manipulate it and they say no, go get us younger girls to rescue. What the fuck? Even if you like this guy, or even if you don't agree with me politically or something, this is super concerning that he's going and doing vigilante shit. There's 2 Vice articles. I'll link them both. Oh, one more quote. I'm not saying they don't need help, but this is not Taken with Liam Neeson. These are girls in a desperate situation. They need a job and an education. They don't need someone to rescue them, some white guy from Utah. Well said. Oh, here's a weird quote. If you want to read that. Okay, so now we're going to watch footage from one of their actual operations. As this footage was captured by undercover cameras during a child trafficking sting operation organized by OUR. These young victims are preparing to be sold for you-know-what to who they think are rich tourists. These blank traffickers think they're about to score one of the biggest deals of their lives. So they arrange the whole thing. It's a sting operation. And they have cameras on the inside, which is just kind of weird. So they're getting ready. This is Tim, the founder and CEO of OUR. He's working undercover to negotiate a price to buy the victims from the traffickers. Okay, they've got guys outside. It looks like local law enforcement. Someone let them in the front door. Okay, they start to arrest the guys. They get them down on the ground. It's like a lot of guys involved in this. There's Tim. He winks at the camera. Okay, so this is the money that they exchanged for the girls. 26 victims liberated. 8 traffickers arrested. All thanks to your donations. I have questions. Were those victims victims? Were those women or girls? Were they underage? Were they being held there against their will? Now, I know this is a nuanced topic, but they don't give any of that information. Thing is, having the cops come into a room full of SWers or victims is super dangerous because the police are known to shoot people, innocent people. To do that sting operation in a way that doesn't actually protect the victims that they're trying to save and could in fact put them in harm's way. And after you rescued them, then what happened? What does this do effectively to stop trafficking? I don't know. I'm not convinced that that was a super effective operation, but maybe you guys have a different opinion. Let me know in the comments. I'm open to ideas. I just thought that that was a really, really vague demonstration of what it is that they do. You guys can go ahead and read these articles, but I think it's time to finally watch this video.
I am a husband first, and then a father to 9 children, 2 that are adopted.
Adopted from Haiti, by the way. I forgot to mention that earlier.
So I was born in Glendale, California, raised in La Cañada, and my family is one of kind of a single mindset in terms of occupation. They built quite a legacy of commercial real estate. And
there's just something about people who own a lot of real estate. They're just creeps.
I wanted to be a cop. And I think a lot of that was hired right out of grad school to work at the CIA. And then 6 months into that, I'm ripped from this dream job and told, you're gonna go fight child sex crimes.
A quick trigger warning, content warning about what we're about to watch. I didn't realize this, but he goes in depth into what he's seen on videotapes, CP, all sorts of abuse. But if that's something that's triggering for you, probably best not to watch the rest of this. Anyways, just thought I'd let you know, because it does get a little bit graphic.
The very first case I worked, it was a bunch of CDs and things that we just seized, and I had to look through it. And I'm watching these videos, and it was 3 little boys that were like 3, 5, and 8.
Jesus Christ.
The same age as my
Holy
kids. And
shit.
they look like my kids. They're all blonde hair, blue eyes. And I remember watching this video, and I could not believe what I was watching. We're now in one of the first operations at OUR. I had to quit my job in order to actually have the time to infiltrate this false orphanage in Haiti.
Okay, so quick question, because this is super compelling, and it sounds like, you know, his work with the United States government, they were definitely getting like evidence of these crimes, and they were like, it seems like they were investigating them based on what he said. So why did he leave that occupation and start his own organization? Why wouldn't he continue the work? And like, maybe there's a good reason for it, but he left out the reason why he needed to stop doing the super legitimate work and go start a decentralized nonprofit agency. The only thing I can think of is that he wanted to make more money off of it, which is super cynical, but like, why else would he leave? I mean, the United States government has all these resources and stuff, and they clearly had a lot of evidence that it was happening. So why stop?
Going in to look for this one little boy we're looking for, but they said, look, if they're selling kids to you, you have to buy one. And that will catch them in the act, and we'll know what their intent is, what they're doing. I hear this silence on the other line as I tell this story, and she says, where are their parents? So the parents are dead. She's like, I want to be their mother. I said, what are you, crazy? We have 6 kids. I just quit my job. We have no savings. And brought Colleen, my brother and sister, home, and they're now our family. And it was the best thing I ever did. We estimate well over 200,000 children right now in the United States who are being exploited sexually in a commercial sex trade. The greatest population of child sex offenders live here. There was a case 30 miles from my home not long ago. We think they're playing the computer because we're not paying attention. Turns out this guy's 42-year-old guy from Salt Lake City.
Okay, I'm going to stop him right there. Do I believe that there are a bunch of creeps and weirdos in the US? Absolutely. In fact, I think some of this is like child, you know what, tourism that happens where like Americans or maybe other people from like Western countries go to, you know, places like Haiti or Mexico, Thailand, yada, 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 and exploit the fact that they have places like this. Is Tim Ballard doing sting operations with ex-Navy guys in Thailand gonna fucking stop this from happening? Absolutely not. Is Tim Ballard posting shit on his website like saying this is done 100% without the government gonna stop this? No. No, it's not. It's going to funnel money into his organization, line his pockets, and then he's going to be fucking done. And meanwhile, the U.S. is still going to be floundering because every single conservative and a lot of Democrat leaders have been stripping agencies for years of all the resources they need to do things like help children. We're very bad at helping children in this country. If they're hungry, if they're being harmed, if they don't have parents, if their parents have been put in prison, we're extremely, extremely bad at helping these children. If we were to funnel resources into helping those agencies do much better, given what we know about what he's talking about the abuse that happens, maybe we could stop it. But instead, they're doing the opposite. They're stripping our education system of as much as they can. They're chipping away at it every chance they get. They have been for decades.
You need to understand there's no profile for this. It's not the dirty, gross guy that you think. It's anyone. And so there's no question that the people that are partaking of this are in the highest levels of corporations, government.
Yeah, we all know
this. So I do
this.
think there is a pressure from them to protect themselves and others by not letting this become a big deal. When I start talking about this, people start turning off their radios and their TVs and their YouTube, because they don't want to see it. But the lesson I learned, which we need to pass on to others, is we have to engage. So parents need to wake up. They're teaching these first graders this material.
Oh.
They're teaching.
Whoa. We just made a really weird switch. We have to engage. Okay, that to me sounded like we have to be proactive. We have to educate our kids about like internet safety. That's where I thought he was going. But now let's see what he's going to say about what they're teaching them in first grade.
Listen, children's sex education. If an adult is talking about sex and showing diagrams and pictures, it's illegal to do it. But all of a sudden, if a teacher does it, now we're going to call it legal and healthy. And
but that education is so important, because a lot of times victims of abuse who are young do not know what is happening to them until much later. This is getting heavy, guys, but like to say that is so unscientific. And the only reason that we need to talk to them about these things is to hopefully prevent abuse. So this seems counterintuitive to me.
Them question their gender by showing them pornographic images. The inconsistency of what's going on.
What are you fucking talking about? You're telling me that those like 200,000 cases in the US or whatever, that all those were like situations where the kid thought they were trans? Are you fucking kidding me? He just spent 10 minutes getting us into this emotional state, this scared state about all these terrible things that do happen around the world. This is how conservatives do it. They talk about something that's real. And then there's the hook, the fucking pitch. Oh, here comes the pitch. And they hook in their ideology right in with it, with all the stuff that is scary and bad and real. And it's important for all of us to understand how they do this, because then all of a sudden you're going to a Q rally holding a sign that says "Save the Children," and you have no idea why you got here. You just know that some guy was making a lot of good points and it sounded real. And then he said that it was because they're teaching kids about pronouns.
Because they don't want to see it.
Yeah, it's hard to talk about. It's awkward to talk about with kids, but it's also scary. You might have some trauma yourself. You don't want to talk about it. But then he says that the problem is that people are trying to educate kids about this stuff.
We have to engage.
We have to engage.
So parents need to wake up. They're teaching these first graders this material.
Okay, we have to engage by teaching kids about it, right? We have to engage by educating ourselves about it. Now he wants everyone to be hands-off about it?
They're teaching prepubescent children sex education. If an adult is talking about sex and showing diagrams and pictures...
But if sex crimes can happen to prepubescent children, then why shouldn't we be teaching them that? At least enough to make it safer.
But all of a sudden, if a teacher does it, now we're going to call it legal and healthy. And they're having them question their gender by showing them pornographic images. They're
having them question their gender by showing them pornographic images. How many of you at a young age looked at pornographic images? Probably a lot. Did it make you question your gender? This is the same type of guys like, when I was a kid, we had like a fucking box out in the woods with all these old porno magazines that we'd look at.
We're desensitizing people, the boys, to become pedophiles or...
No, they already are. The grown-ups who didn't go through this gender non-binary pronouns education that you're so scared of, the people that are 50, 60, 70 years old that have been doing these crimes for decades.
We're desensitizing people, the boys, to become pedophiles or sex addicts or dysfunctional husbands.
We're doing that? Because it seems like it's already been like that. Name a civilization that didn't have men that do those things. This is not like a modern US problem. This isn't an internet problem. Sure, the internet access to kids, that's a separate thing. That's a safety issue. That's a teaching your kid about technology issue. But name one society that didn't have pedos. I'll wait, which is also extremely alarming when you think about it.
And we're teaching the girls to promote it by being sexual.
We're teaching girls to promote it by being sexual? What fucking year is it? Go read a book that isn't fucking yours.
We're gonna have more victims and more predators.
Sounds like fear-mongering.
And it's our kids who will become the victims and the predators thanks to the indoctrination of what's happening.
Okay, The indoctrination of what's happening, your current boogeyman, which is, I guess, the trans community or teachers that want to do sex ed, this has been happening for years across cultures, across centuries, across religions. Are you saying that the guys who were running that orphanage in Haiti were like leftists? Were they trans? What the fuck are you talking about?
I don't think God sent us to this earth to float down a river and be ignorant and blissful. He sent us down here to fight evil. We're up against an industry.
Why did he create evil? I just, the whole God thing just makes zero sense to me. Anybody who says that God is telling them to do stuff, that person is manipulating Christians. They're manipulating Christian people's relationship with God in order to gain legitimacy.
And compels me to continue on the path is really those 2 children that we rescued. Seeing their happy faces every day, knowing that there's millions of others who do not have those happy faces. And that's it. Between that and knowing I have to meet my maker someday and have to answer the question, did you do everything you could? Between those 2 things, I stay pretty motivated and I don't regret.
I don't know about the meet my maker thing, but the part about like just genuinely wanting to help kids, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, and I will say that that is 100% legit, that this man genuinely loves to help children. That does not mean he's qualified to go and do these operations. That doesn't mean that hiring a psychic medium to say this boy who's been lost for, 10 years or something like that can now be found because of her abilities, her psychic abilities. It doesn't mean that letting some guy who donated $10,000 to your organization go on a sting op with you in Mexico City is a good fucking idea.
Whether you're fighting human trafficking or free speech or freedom of religion, or, you're fighting the government who's trying to control your life or take your kids from you and think they can educate your children better than...
Wait, that just took a real weird turn. He said, we should all open up to fighting more, fighting human trafficking, I think he meant for free speech, for freedom of religion, fighting the government who gave me all of my qualifications to do this. They're trying to take kids from you. What do you from who? From Prager U viewers? After all the anecdotal shit that you just told us, that governments shouldn't ever take kids away from people, even if they're abused by those people? Because like in most situations, the abuser is somebody that like has guardianship over the child, like in a lot of situations. So you're saying like the government shouldn't step in situations where abuse is happening? Are you saying that the government shouldn't teach your kids things that you're unwilling to talk to them about?
I mean, these are real fights we're all having. Where are you going to find the courage to take on that tyranny?
You are the establishment. You literally worked for the CIA, then you worked for Homeland Security, were appointed by the president to do this, then you quit so that you could start your own tax-exempt organization. You get your tax exemption status from the United States government, and now your main boogeyman is either trans people or the government. And also, you are the establishment. You're a white man with fucking, like, government clearance. You are literally the establishment that tons of people are fighting against. You don't get to use this fucking rhetoric that you're fighting the system.
Let God fill you with that power and that courage, and you can stand up.
How many children have been abused in the name of God? There's a question for you, Tim. All right, so that's it. That's Stories of Us by Prager U.
Thank you so much for watching this episode. We're asking you to consider making a tax-deductible donation to Prager U and providing this amazing service to bring truth and light to the world.
All right, guys, I'm back at the four-way stop. That was a heavy one. Thanks for sticking around for that one. I hope you see what I mean when I say this guy is... The vibes are off. If you guys want me to talk about this again, let me know if you have any questions, or there's more that you want to see about some of the influencers that have gone on these raids. If you want me to go into more of those Vice articles or watch more videos of the little sting operations they do, let me know. And I think we can all agree that it was really weird how he started the video and then used it to hook in weird anti-government, anti-trans, anti-sex education talking points, even though the beginning seemed so compelling. And this is pretty much par for the course for this kind of stuff. But let me know what you think. I'd really like to hear you guys' thoughts on this, because this is niche. But now that I see it on Prager U, maybe it's getting not so niche anymore. Anyways, I hope this was enlightening, and I'm sorry if it caused anybody psychic damage. This shit was dark. And I got one last thing to say to you.
Goodbye.